I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm Biscuits.
Biscuits?
Biscuits.
Oh, that's the first thing came to mind.
Okay.
Well, all right.
All right, that works.
I think JT's hungry.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit. He
little
just
hungry.
He just wants some biscuits.
Biscuits.
Biscuit would be a cute name for a dog.
Biscuits, cute name for a dog. We're talking about how dog and food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
How's puppy life going for you?
There have been moments of puppy's blues. I'll be honest with you because he is kind of a terror. But he's going through that phase. I think he's coming out of it. We actually found him a dog to play with, and that's helped a lot because I think he spends most of his time thinking that me and Megan are just dogs to play with, and it's like we are not dogs to play with. Please remove your teeth from my body.
He's going through changes.
Yes, he is.
But
now he's the unruly teenager right now.
Yeah.
Because like we had him doing tricks and then knowing his name. Now he doesn't listen to us at all. He's just like, you don't know what I'm going through. It's like, you're right. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You're correct.
But you do have to go outside and do your business.
Has he had any accidents?
Well, he still pees in the house. I would say it's drastically reduced, like maybe once a day now, which is impressive because it was like 20 times a day before. But it's interesting because he doesn't have accidents in his kennel.
Okay.
So like he goes the night without having accidents.
That's where he
when we
sleeps,
leave,
yeah.
he doesn't go in the kennel at all. And sometimes he'll just go to the door and be like, I need to go out. And then he'll just pee right at the door. And you're like, yes, that's correct. Ideally, you just have to wait till you're on the other side of that door.
You know, just the life of puppies.
Puppy life.
Puppy life.
Yeah, Tartan was so bad about that.
He's a sweetie, though.
He's
we
very
love
sweet.
We love Oberon.
He's very sweet.
Obi.
Obi.
But yes, including puppies and biscuits and things like that, we have Ghostmail as well.
You've got Ghostmail.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And a couple quick announcements before we get into the Ghostmail. We are doing a new series, a new segment, I should say, for the Parajunkies. We live stream a lot of the episodes when we're filming them. And basically, 30 minutes before we start filming, we're going to do a new segment called The Fix.
Yes.
Where pretty much we discuss various paranormal topics that we're into, true crime topics.
Or just our week in general.
Our week in general, but also doing Q&A.
Direct chat back, yeah.
Yeah, direct chat back with the Parajunkies. It's very fun. So we just did our first one today when we were filming this.
Success.
Very successful. So join us over on Patreon for that. But if you become an Ultra Parajunkie, we're going to be also doing a new thing that we like to call the Detox.
The Detox.
Yes. And pretty much it's going to be a once a month sort of happy hour sort of dealio. And pretty much you can bring a cup of coffee, a cocktail, a beer, whatever you're feeling that day, a snack. And we'll just hang out on Zoom and get to know all of our Ultra Parajunkies. And also they get to meet each other because Patreon is faceless to a degree. So I'm sure it'll be nice to actually get to see all of the patrons.
Yes.
But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and dive on into our ghost mail.
Dive on into the ghost mail.
Anyways, so our first one comes from Courtney. So good evening. Well, good morning for us. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. Guten Tag. Good day.
Guten Tag.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I'm finally catching up on your episodes on YouTube, and I just finished the episode you did that was dedicated to Ryan. I hope she's now resting peacefully. Yes, if you are new here, Ryan was one of our para-junkies that unfortunately passed, and so we did an episode reading her Ghostmail. But I've written before and just had to share this with you. Back in November of 2023, my husband Landon surprised me with a trip to Savannah with the purpose to do some type of ghost investigation, relax, and secretly hopefully run into one of you. And we did. I remember running into Courtney. I serendipitously spotted Madison at this breakfast hub, and the food was amazing. And of course, had to say hi. Madison, you're so sweet, and I honestly couldn't believe our paths were crossing. We had absolutely no plan in the morning, and dragged our feet about and ended up at that restaurant, and there you were. Yes, it was very nice to meet you as well, Courtney. Funny enough, I was already feeling a spooky high because the night before I had seen my first Savannah ghost.
Ooh, okay. What restaurant was it again?
It was Sentient Bean.
Oh, Sentient Bean. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
We had been walking the strip all afternoon/evening and stopped into a little shop. As we were stepping out of the shop, I noticed 3 people walking in our direction, but start to go around Landon. As he's in front of me and I'm foreseeing a collision of sorts, I reach out to grab him and tell him to watch his step. He's stepping backwards off the curb when all of a sudden the third person is gone. I honestly couldn't believe it. This was a fully embodied man in jeans and a hoodie up over his head, and all of a sudden he just wasn't there.
Wow. Okay.
As you know, I've seen orbs, but never full apparitions. The next evening, we decided to go on a ghost investigation at the Savannah Theater, and this was quite the experience. We went with a group ran by a paranormal shop in the downtown area, and it was quite eventful. 5 stars, LOL. Anyway, I'm beat. It's late, and we're sitting in the balcony listening to the tour guide talk about the spirits within the theater prior to us fanning out. As I'm sitting there, I find myself nodding off. Then I suddenly wake up and just start crying. Quietly but uncontrollably for like 3 minutes. Apparently, there's a spirit there that does that, makes guests cry. Carrying on. Interesting.
That's new to me.
Oh, wow.
Very interesting. Carrying on, we continue on our investigation, including looking for Ben, but to no avail. We later go backstage, I believe stage right, and we're doing a voice box, and we very clearly get some responses from a woman, not the diva, though. Excuse my phrasing, I can't remember her name.
Betty.
Or
Or
Elizabeth.
Yeah. She made it known that she doesn't like Betty.
I specifically changed it to Elizabeth on my tour because I was calling her Betty for years. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I said this in front of your space. But yes, she just wanted us to leave, and so we left. We went to the dressing room with the mirrors, and my, oh my, someone was very responsive to me. The spirit sat to my right, and the box was with the headphones and light was screaming anytime I point it in that direction. Oh, I think, was it like an EMF reader? Maybe? I don't know.
Or REM pod if it was screaming.
Yeah. There was also a sound box in the center of the room. As we sat, we noticed a repeated drum beat over and over and over again. Which isn't Chippewa Square a site of one of the Yamakra burial sites?
I know Wright Square is, but that's right there. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Savannah was the bluff overlooking the water, which was more of a site for burial than living.
Right.
That's kind of one of the reasons why the land wasn't of high value, like farming or
Right.
fishing, or because the water is still very salty right there. So it doesn't really behoove anyone to live right on the river for the water's sake.
Well, even the soil's sake, too.
Well, and the soil is terrible.
It's clay and sand.
Right.
If you've ever tried to grow anything here, it's hard. But regardless, though.
Yeah, Madison. I had to buy Madison. Build. I had to build Madison an above ground garden because it was just impossible to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need very aggressive wildlife, fauna.
Yes, which is why oak trees do very well here.
Or flora, excuse me.
Yeah. But yes, One of the tour guides was talking to this spirit and seemed to believe that this man was Ben's dad. After a little while, I proceeded to drum to the beat, and he seemed to enjoy this. This all led me to wonder what his backstory was or where this drum beat came from. Was he Ben's dad, or was he a musical performer in the theater at some point? Was he a free man or a slave at the time of his passing? I forgot to mention, we went to the Sorrel Weed House before going to the Savannah Theater, and although I didn't see or feel anything, Landon said he saw the man of the house in the doorway of the first room. Nonetheless, it was a very beautiful home, and I wish we would have explored more of the property. Oh, and another thing. Since returning from this trip, I've been seeing a little shadow spirit in my home. It's maybe 2 feet and peeks around the quit peeking. I hate peeking ghost. And it peeks around the corner of my bedroom door frame. Doesn't seem menacing or anything like that, but I don't indulge it. Yeah. My 6-year-old son seems to see it too every once in a while. I've been able to subdue his appearances with some practices, but he likes to turn up every couple of months.
Interesting.
Thanks for taking the time to read this lengthy email, and thank you for always being kind and open-minded. The community you've nurtured into existence is a worthy one. Much love.
Thank you.
It's very sweet.
Very.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that you might have picked something up here in old Savannah.
Yeah.
Because...
Especially if you're going distinctly looking for ghosts.
Right.
You're open to the contact.
Yeah, especially with shadow spirits, because those tend to be low energy beings. It's very common for them to attach to people because they want the acknowledgement so they can continue existing. But if it's not feeling malevolent and it's just kind of there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Interesting that your husband saw Francis Sorrel.
Yeah, very rare sighting of the male presence at Sorrel Weed. It's usually Matilda or Lucinda,
whoever,
and occasionally Sally.
And what's the daughter's name? The 6-year-old girl.
Oh.
Usually her too.
Yes. Yes. The little girl is very prominent.
Yeah.
In the basement, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting that you saw that. But yeah, also Ben's dad. I've never heard of Ben's dad.
I've never heard of Ben's dad at all. And as far as drumming is concerned, the thought that came to my mind immediately was Sheldon Pinkney, who is a performer that recently passed away. But they used to do Stomp. Segments of Stomp there, which is basically just a big drum show. So it's
is it similar to like Stomping the Yard?
No, it's
So it's interesting. Stomp was a Broadway show in which they were using anything as a drum. Okay. So it's the one where they have like trash can lids or turn over trash cans and play trash cans.
Okay, yeah.
And they go up the stairs, playing stairs, and they use like brooms.
I remember that.
Yes. For all this rhythmic stuff.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's what came immediately to my mind when you were saying drumming. I was like, oh, that's interesting because people try to reach out to Sheldon a lot. He's very beloved, and he only passed away like 10 years ago. So
okay.
Yeah.
And his picture is in the lobby.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
We just had a Savannah legend pass away, didn't we?
Diana.
Diana.
Yeah. Well, she was kind of a legend in the social scene because she was this very bold woman in her fashion. She died at 90 something years old.
Right. Okay.
And and she always came in like these super outrageous outfits out to,
She was like 90-year-old in these outrageous outfits.
Always wore red lipstick.
Yeah.
Always had big glasses on. She frequented Savoy Society, which is how I knew her. But she recently passed away, and they had a little memorial for her at the airport, which we saw, which was cute.
R.I.P.
Which is very Savannah,
It's very Savannah. I was thinking it's like keep Austin weird, right? But we should keep Savannah quirky.
Savannah is quirky, that's
Quirky
for
as
sure.
heck.
Savannah odd.
Yes, I mean
odd.
I always call it the Midsummer's Night Dream. What's it called? The book here.
Midnight in the Garden.
Yeah, I mean, all the tourists know it, the locals don't.
Right.
But anyway,
The book.
Yeah,
People just refer to it as the book. When I first
book.
when I first
that's
moved
how
here,
I do.
A woman and I moved here when the Midnight in the Garden, Good and Evil first came out, and this elderly, sweet, grandmotherly woman, total stranger to me, is like, "Have you read the book?"
The book.
And I thought there's only the book in my life, and that's the Bible. And I'm like, well, yeah, I have. And she said, "Isn't it wonderful?" It's like, a lot of people love it. And she's like, "Oh, I just love that drag queen." And my head was like, drag queen.
You're like drag queen in the Bible.
You have the New Testament.
Give the newest testament.
This is the newest testament. Very progressive.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah. R.I.P. Lady Chablis, man.
Yeah. Jesus is a biscuit. Let him sop you up. Not Lady Chablis. La Trace Royale, but it felt fitting.
It did.
But anywho, yeah, it's that book is very beloved here.
Why did I mention the book? I mentioned the book for some reason.
I don't remember why you mentioned it.
Because of the
it's
weird and quirky.
it's quirky.
Yeah.
It highlights a lot of the quirkiness of Savannah.
I think Clint Eastwood nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people thought he toned it down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
And it's possible too that the book is a little toned down too, because the depiction of the Jim Williams parties, where people are just standing around and having civil discussions. Apparently, they were raucous events of craziness and debauchery and
bras on the lampshade.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well,
Probably
that's
firing off their guns.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Savannah way. There's no tame parties in this city.
Nope.
But yes. So our next ghost mail comes from Maddie, who actually sent this in on TikTok.
Okay.
So, hi. So, I have a pretty scary story from a few years back when I was in high school. One week, I started to have these bad dreams, and the energy in my room felt pretty off, but I didn't pay much attention to it. The next week, I'm sleeping over at my friend's house, and I had a dream that I was sitting in my bedroom, and a demonic entity was terrorizing me.
Oh.
Fast forward again to the next week, and I had 2 girlfriends come over after youth group. We were sitting in my bedroom just talking about God. We're Catholic. Eventually, we get into keeping certain things in our room for prayer and protection and stuff. And I mentioned how I've been thinking of putting a little statue of Mother Mary in my room. As soon as I said that, though, the energy in the room shifted. It was suffocating, and I felt as if I couldn't breathe. This invisible weight was pushing my whole body down, and I was stuck there and couldn't pull my gaze away from my feet.
Wow.
I had this feeling of something was screaming at me with such intense hate. It's hard to explain. Like I didn't hear it, but I just knew that someone was screaming at me not to look up. After fighting with this feeling and inability to breathe, the air felt thick, almost like I couldn't get air in. Jeez. I finally looked up at my friends, and once we all made eye contact, we knew we were all feeling the same thing. Without even saying anything, we just nodded at each other, joined hands, and began to pray. After saying something along the lines of I'm the name of God, or in the name of God, leave here and never return. You have no power here. God is king. It vanished. Things felt normal again after that, but the evil that I felt that day will never be forgotten. It was horrible.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Absolutely. And that I've heard stories very similar to that, in the past, that kind of oppressive darkness, that kind of, for lack of a better term, demonic presence is one of the most fascinating aspects of it is pitting your faith against a demon. Because that's what it definitely sounds like. The triggering notion was that you were going to bring a religious icon into its area of operation, and that immediately diminishes the hold that he could have or it could have upon you or anyone in that room. So yeah, that's
intense.
That is very intense.
Yeah, it's interesting because of the fact that it definitely, just the fact that it had such an intense aversion to having a statue is concerning. But also it just kind of, aids to what we've always said when it comes to dealing with malevolent type entities. Having faith in something is your best asset when you're dealing with these sort of things, whether that be praying and having such intense faith that that's what you believe in, that is your protection. Or,
because too, like the Catholic Church is a good example of an institution that created a very regimented system, and that regimented system can also affect the otherworldly things. They're learning just as easily as we are learning. And so if this becomes some kind of dogmatic law, then these entities oftentimes will follow the law simply because of exposure. Just the same way that we are sort of incapable of upturning our faith simply by, will. So too can these dark figures who may have been raised on the same notion of these are the rules. They can't break those rules simply because they don't know that those rules could be broken.
Right.
And that becomes, a lot of the ebb and flow of it. And that's why, like, even older practices, ancient practices, spirits have long memories. These entities have long memories. If you tap into anything that reminds them of how inconsequential they can become, you have something. So yeah, whatever faith you follow, when you invest fully into that faith, you've got a powerful weapon against darkness.
Absolutely,
For sure.
yeah. Or even saying, like we always say, people can like have a knife or whatever and be like, I'm gonna get you, and it's like, oh my God, can you get me?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
if your faith in a weapon or charm or good luck or anything like that, you got a rabbit's foot and you believe that that's going to protect you, it very well could because of your belief. But there's a very slippery slope.
Sure.
Because things like that are easily challenged.
Right.
Things like that can be challenged. If you hold up a knife, that's easily challenged. Something innocuous like, God is going to smite you, that's a so bizarre a notion that it's like, well, I can't test that. What
That's true.
How do I test whether or not that's true without being smited? Stabbing someone doesn't always result in them dying, or you can take your chances. You know?
All right, we are here. And Chris is not here anymore. It's Debria now. Woo! Yay!
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who are watching, here's Debria. For those of you who are listening, here's Debria.
You have to say something.
Hi, I am Debria, a.k.a. Chris.
Okay. Heard.
This has been Chris all along.
Black female Chris.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Chris was a shapeshifter. And so now he is in the form of what he likes to call Debria. But anyways, the reason why Chris is no longer here and now Debria is here is because this next story and our last story for the episode, we filmed before Chris left for San Francisco. But unfortunately, because most of y'all know, we don't proofread these stories before we read them on Ghostmail, because we find we get the best honest reactions if we just read it for the first time live on air. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And so that happened with this story. So we are refilming this at a later time than when we filmed the rest of the episode. So hence why we're all in different outfits, and Chris has now changed forms. But yeah, so we're going to finish up the episode with Parajunkie Alexis's story.
Yes.
So buckle in, everybody. You ready, Debria, Chris?
Yes, I am ready.
All right.
All right. Hey, y'all. I have a few stories, but I wanted to tell the main one first. It's a bit long, but I will get to the point where it is shareable. Also, I'm very excited if y'all read this, and I'd love to know what your opinion of what you think it was. Some context. My house was built in the 1920s in East Los Angeles from what I know from previous owners. It was originally owned by a Jewish couple, and they had no deaths in the house. Then it was a Japanese family who, again, had no deaths in the home. Then it was my grandparents. We are Mexican, and in the 1940s is when the grandparents owned the house. The only death that has taken place there is my grandfather, who passed while in hospice in his room. I have also been able to see, hear, and feel spirits since I could remember, but I do not like seeing them. It scares me beyond belief, so when I feel them, I try not to look towards what I hear/feel. Story starts with me being awoken from my sleep by a loud bang, and the sound was familiar to me. It was my old wooden door, the same door that has been there since the 1920s, hitting my dresser that was behind my door. I thought this was very odd because I strictly sleep with my door closed. Same. I thought that this may have been my parents, so with my eyes closed, I sleep with an eye mask. I said, "Mom, Dad?" I did not hear a response, and that's when I felt the energy of the room shift from me being alone to something there with me. I was trying to feel if it was a spirit that normally haunts my house, and it did not feel recognizable to me. It felt angry and even downright evil. I was trying to calm myself because at this point I was pretty spooked and was trying to convince myself that there is nothing there and that I am safe. While I am trying to gather myself, that's when I hear it walk behind my headboard and stare at me over my bed face to face.
What the world?
I felt it breathe on me as if it was staring at me, and at this point I was starting to shake out of fear. It remained in that bent over position staring at me for what it felt like forever, but I imagine was a few minutes. That's when I felt it stand straight up again and walk from the back of my headboard to my door multiple times. At this point, I knew what it wanted. It wanted me to look at it, and I refused. Good for you, Alexis.
Yes.
After hearing it walk back and forth, it stood at my headboard again and bent over to stare at me face to face. I believe at this moment my brain was too afraid to face what was happening, so I fell back asleep into this nightmare. In this nightmare, I am running with my mother from this fire chasing us. We hit a dead end, and my mother then turns around and yells at the fire as it's getting closer. "Stop it, Tabitha!" I believe that this was the entity providing me with its name. I was awoken again to the feeling of someone from the end of my bed climbing on top of me. I felt its hands pulling to get itself... Yeah, I concur. I felt its hands pulling to get itself on me, on my legs, and then my abdomen area. That's when I felt it staring at me again, and this time I could hear its sickly, asthmatic breath on my face.
Lord.
And I was at this point terrified, and I felt myself shaking out of fear. And all I could do in that moment was turn my head to the side so I could not be face to face with it. Then, in a snap, it disappeared. I felt it off of me, and in that moment, I could not feel anything with me in the room. I gathered all my courage I could to grab my phone and run to the restroom with my eyes closed. I made it and managed to call my best friend, and he also feels spirits, and he told me to go get my mom and have her sleep with me and to not show you were afraid. Minor context. My mother and I do not have a good relationship. I never show her fear or any emotion like that, so for me to request to hold her hand and sleep with me was beyond abnormal. In fact, she was shocked when I asked her. After speaking to him and turning on the lights, I stepped out of my bathroom and looked in my room, and my door, which again I do not allow to be open as I sleep, was wide open.
Oof.
That's a yikes.
Big yikes.
Mm-hmm. This confirmed for me what I just went through, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this really happened. I ran to my mom, who never believed my ghost stories and was grumpy that I woke her up and had to lay in bed with me. As we were trying to sleep, I felt it enter the room again. I felt it start to lean into my face and stare at me again, and I began to shake. That's when my mother said, "Alexis, it's okay, there is no..." And she stopped mid-sentence.
Oh, I thought that was...
I
was like, again?
Oh, no. Wouldn't that be something? But she stopped mid-sentence and paused for a moment, and I felt her jolt up and pull on my arm and say, "No, we aren't staying here. Sleep in my room." At this point, I was so emotionally exhausted with all the fear I felt, I managed to fall asleep quickly. The next morning, I wake up, and she is in the kitchen, and she doesn't face me. Ooh. In fact, she won't face me, and I kept asking her what was wrong. She turned around, and I saw her pale, eyes wide, all the symptoms of shock, and I said, "You saw it, didn't you?" And she kept nodding no, and I said in Spanish, "Just tell me already." She sat me down, and I said, "I've never believed you until last night. I saw it." Oh. I opened my eyes when you were shaking, and it was like something out of The Exorcist. I saw this horrible green face with horns, and its skin looked like stone.
Wow.
We have gotten priests.
It's like full demon.
Yeah. Classic portrayal of a demon, too, which is kind of bizarre.
I thought I knew, and then they said green, and now I don't know anymore.
You're like, the green's not doing it for me. I need it to be red. But we have gotten priests, a Mexican witch called a curandero, a Jewish blessing, and I have begun practicing witchcraft. I'm a baby witch. And cleanse my home once a month, and that entity has never come back. My other ghosts still remain, and I have so many other stories, but this is the main one.
Oh, boy. Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, this feels very hag, succubus.
Yes.
Very hag. Did it remind you of your hag encounters?
Oh, really? It did?
Yeah, but the only difference is I couldn't move.
Oh, yeah. And yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, it feels to me. So what I found interesting is that you had the dream where your mom called it Tabitha. And the thing is most entities don't give up their names like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So part of me is thinking that maybe by giving you that name, it wanted you to let your guard down a little bit. Yep. To be like, yeah, my name's Tabitha, because Tabitha also sounds like a lot of other demonic names.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit off so that it makes you feel rational enough, but it's not giving you the full power. Because also Tabitha would be a very bizarre name, in my opinion, for a greenhorn demon that's not from like a smutty like fairy book, you know?
So what other differences, because I've known that Debria has suffered from sleep paralysis for a while now. What are the differences between your sleep paralysis and hers?
Well,
or just the witch, I guess. That's what I mean.
Well, one, I can't move. Mm-hmm. I do see a figure. I think the first time I saw a figure was at the apartment I'm at now.
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever seen a figure. And the figure was very tall. It was hovering over me. And then I closed my eyes and I could feel like it left, but I still had that pressure like I can't move. And then eventually I'll fall asleep and then I'll wake up and it's all, better, I guess.
Yeah.
But the green face and horns, nope. We've never done that.
So do you think that, different cultures have different hags that do different things?
Maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like when you look at hags in particular, they have a lot of similarities to succubi, I should say, incubi, even vampiric lore. Uh-huh. They all kind of intermingle a little bit. And so I think the big differentiating point is the cultural differences. Okay. Because you oftentimes see vampires in more Slavic lore and Eastern European realm succubi have been in multiple cultures. I find hags in particular really only come into play usually with people who have some level of African descendants,
Yes.
but that just could be because that's just that one subsection of malevolent type entity. To me, it sounds like this particular entity, because intuition's a big thing. What are you feeling in the moment when you're having those encounters? And the fact that you were saying that you felt like it wanted you to look at it leads me to think that it's not trying to steal energy by doing the hag thing, which is to ride your chest and be like Dementor style, But it feels more like it feeds off of fear. In the way that's how it gains energy and it sustains itself, is by knowing it looks horrifying, which is also sometimes a key indicator of, for lack of a better term, a demonic force. They will shapeshift into something that is disturbing to you in particular, or disturbing to your mother. And I'm not overtly familiar with too many Mexican particular malevolent entities, because I know they do have their own demonic subsection of entities, but I wonder if it wasn't portraying itself as something that your mother would have feared and why she saw it that way. And maybe if you saw it, it would have looked differently. Yeah. Just a thought.
No, it's a good thought. 100%.
But yeah, we'll ask Chris if he knows any particularly Mexican demons when he gets back, but or I'll do some reading, some digging on it. But it is interesting that it spurred you enough to want to get all these different cultures to come in and bless the house, just covering all the bases, you know, which is fascinating at least. But
I could try to find like a Mexican demonologist, or just someone who can speak on the culture.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
It would be. I still am trying to find a Native American a person to talk about Native American lore and whatnot.
Any people learning shamanism out there who's listening, let us know. Because we've been wanting a shaman to come onto this for
there's
forever.
So many. Just being a paranormal podcast, there's like so many topics that we haven't discussed yet, but we want to discuss. But we're white.
Right. No, literally.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it's just true.
Yeah.
It's like we can't just talk, like, we can talk about the Wendigo all day, but when you start to get into like real Native American spirituality, we're just like, no.
Well, because a lot of that is closed information. And
it is closed information.
Yeah. And there are certain facets that are not meant for the public to know about.
Yep.
So you can only do so much reading about things. But yeah, and then we do have a deep knowledge from Chris about at least different Asian.
He's well read, that boy.
Yeah. Well,
we FaceTime him in.
We're like, Chris, I know you're at the Winchester mansion, but if you could you tell us anything about? Do you know any demons from Mexico that have green?
He'd be like, I do.
I do.
Actually, I do.
Yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, though, thank you, Alexis, for sending in that horrifying story.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's going to keep Debria up all night.
Oh, God.
You're just going to picture this little green devil.
I don't want to look into his face. That's the thing. Maybe it is a hag. I never looked in my figure's face before. So maybe next time, I'm not going to. I'm just kidding.
You're like,
I'll be like, this is literally me. Oh, no.
oh.
Oh, no.
Which it is, just a side note, it is interesting, though, that you had the more intense sleep paralysis encounters in the space you're in now, because Kiwan, JT's brother, used to live in the unit right above Debria, and he has horrible sleep paralysis as well, and it was really bad in that apartment.
And y'all just telling me?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he used to sleep with the Bible next to him, and so he would.
I think he left his hag. Because he hasn't talked about it. He would have told me, if
he
it
left
happened
that for
more.
you.
I think he left it for you.
That was a welcome. That was a welcome gift for you, Debria.
It traveled downstairs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed some ghosty mail. But if you have a ghost story you want to send in, you can send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. We love to read them. We love to see it. Also, you can send any questions you might have for Q&As, or if you have ghost photos you want to send for a Ghost Con and Camera segment, please send them on over to Ghostmail.
Heck
Yeah. But with that, thank you so much, y'all. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm Chris.
Stay spooky, y'all.